I'm gonna try and keep this one a little bit shorter, so we're gonna do a little more quick fire talking. But so what are we talking about? We're talking about terrible ride balance in season 3. Really, what's going on is Riot acting so quickly that it's beginning to become a very erratic balancing pattern. Because we've got we started off, we had Black Cleaver. It was so overpowered that everything compared to Black Cleaver really looked really weak. And so all these erratic buffs and nerfs have been going out. And we've gone through 3 different metas right now. Black Cleaver, Warmogs, and then Blade the Ruined King now. I think Riot is really grating on me. They're losing my faith because they're not showing that they've learned anything. This is the 3rd time now we're going through a meta shift because of, too much crap. Warmugs was popular at the time because Armor Shred was really a big deal. Once people settled into normal items, Warmugs was shown and then once it got nerfed it was like and people started to build Sunfire and Locket of the Iron Solar instead of Warmugs. But Riot, in true, neo-Riot fashion, nerfed Warmugs again. Which doesn't really affect me since I stopped building it, but, it grates on me that they would even do something like that. Why would you do something where you nerf a perfectly fine and viable item just because some people haven't had the trickle-down effect happen? The trickle-down effect is, of course, where the trendsetters, the people who find the new overpowered, top-tier combos, they go up the ranks. And then it trickles down the ranks back down. And a Warmog change, hadn't trickled down back yet. People were still doing Warmogs instead of the Locket plus Sunfire combo, for example. And so Warmogs gets nerfed. And now Blade of the Ruined King straight god tier. And I have to question Riot balance, because let's be honest, Blade of the Ruined King and Black Cleaver are so overpowered, I can't believe it got through testing. So they're either not testing, or I don't really know what to tell you. And it's really starting to do multiple bad things. One, we're not waiting around long enough. Tristana and Blade of the Ruined King was being used before this patch, okay? They were being used in their old forms in tournaments. Lots of people were starting to use them. Riot just buffed them. How popular are they gonna be now? Very popular. And it's really a problem. I think Nasus is probably a better example of Riot. They thought Nasus was gonna be good in Season 3. They stopped, they looked at him, they said, okay, why is he not good now that, nobody can hold the lane away from him the entire game? They said, okay, let's look at it. What's going on here? They said, okay, he's running out of mana too quickly. And then they looked at it, they did a whole bunch of tests on the PBE realm, and they said, okay, these are too much, let's scale them back a little bit. They scaled them back a little bit, and I think he's in a good spot now. Maybe not super competitive, but I can see a couple people picking him every so often now. They also did some really nice buffs to make him jungleable. That's a good example. A bad example is Riot buffs Vayne. Vayne? The champion that's been being picked forever now? The hyper carry? They buffed Tristana, a champion that was being picked after their latest buffs to her. And they're moving so quickly that they're not taking time to adjust. They're saying we need a buff, nerf, buff, nerf, buff. And then you look at it, like, it's so weird how sometimes they're like, Nami, they're like, let's give her 5 movement speed. And then they turn back and they're like, did anything break? Did the world explode? I'm going to fetch her like 5 more movement speed. When Elders are like, buff. And here's a buff, and buff. And then they look back and they're like, she's god tier. And they're like, who could have seen this coming? Nobody. It's like, Riot, your balancing sucks. I don't know how else to put it. I'm not going to put it nicely. Your balancing is really bad lately. And you're chasing people through metas, and nobody can properly adapt because things are so overpowered, and it's changing what's overpowered. Let's say Aurelia was secretly good. Black Cleaver being so overpowered would have stopped Aurelia. Then Warmogs being so good stops Aurelia. Now maybe with Blade of the Ruined King, Aurelia will be good. But is she good because Blade of the Ruined King is really overpowered? Or is she good because Aurelia is good? Nobody knows. And I bet you Riot's gonna nerf Blade of the Ruined King, buff up some other god tier item, like what happened with Leandri's. You know, Leandri's got buffed so much it's practically a must buy on AP champions, you know. And AP champions are in a better spot, but they have an auto buy item now because Riot couldn't keep their hands in their pockets and they decided buff. And now AP itemization went from being one of the most diverse things to practically everyone's getting the same damn items now. So there you go.